this out. Yeah. Make sure everyone... Okay. I'll check with chat to see if that's working as well. Okay, everything's going green, so everything should be good. I will check to see if it is being sent out. Okay. Okay. I don't think it tweeted it out though, so that will be the issue, I think. Yeah. Okay. Let me see what I can... Okay. I'm not really sure why it's not capturing your audio. It should be. It might not be. It might not be. That might be the fucking issue. Okay, let me... Oh, I think I got it. Say something now.
Testing.
Yeah, it should be. That should be working now. That should be working. Okay. Let's hear it from chat. See if it's working. Chat, is it working now? Say something again real quick.
Hello.
Should be able to hear Uzalu at this moment.
I'm just listening back to the stream to find out.
Seems like the chat is slow.
Yep, it works.
Okay. Okay. Alright, guys. So we are going to be streaming a random Felicia Day video that I did a video on way back when. There's not really to it much more than that, than watching this video and reacting to it. I kind of had a scathing response to it when I originally recorded it, and I thought it was a bit inadequate. You know, not that I was too over the top, but I was... well, I actually was too over the top. And I think that kind of defeated the purpose of the video. It was still decently received, but I thought that Uzalu and I would go through it, and we could engage in Felicia Day's cringe together. Uzalu, are you familiar at all with who Felicia Day is?
Actually, the first time I heard of her was through completely different channels, through gaming channels, through people who like her in the gaming world, back before I was into politics. So I know that she is like more outspokenly progressive than a lot of the other people in the gaming area, but I don't know much more than that, so I'm coming in pretty fresh-faced to this.
Alright, well, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to check chat to see how it's going. Okay, I guess chat's slow for some reason, but that might be because there's a delay, but whatever.
There's a 15-second delay.
Okay, so let's switch on over to the video.
Yep. Now we get to test your tech, see if it works.
Okay, so this is the video. This is likely going to result in a copyright thing on my video, but I don't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck.
All right,
it is fair use, though. Just
they don't care.
Make sure everyone knows.
They don't care.
No, I know they don't, but people should.
We're at a time of great inclusivity and a lot of change, but that's also coming with a backlash. And I wondered if you had particular feelings about things like Gamergate and some of the ways in which the darker side of the internet seems to be fighting against increasing prominent roles for women, particularly in gaming and e-culture. Okay,
so before she responds, I'm just going to quickly reiterate what was just said, and just make sure we're all on the same page. So this biased reporter from this outlet that is going to likely file a copyright claim against my channel. This person is asking Felicia Day what she thinks about Gamergate. And the dark scourge of the deep web attacking women's and minorities and the rest. The reason why, if I remember, I did an entire video on this was because of her fucking response, or the lack thereof. And she later went on, as far as I remember, went on to attack Gamergate and declare herself a victim of it.
So, I vaguely remember that happening.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she doesn't look good. And obviously this guy's implying that the Gamergate is the darker side of the internet. It's just pure narrative.
Yeah.
From what I can tell.
Yeah, this is an old video. I hope people can appreciate that this is fucking from 2015. But
yeah.
I'm doing a proper response to it now. All right, let me switch back over. Let's do it.
I think that whenever you challenge someone's paradigm about what the truth of something is, then you're going to have people who are inflexible and not able to change their perception and feel that any judgment or trying to change a world or a fandom is a reflection on judging them as people.
Okay. The gaming press to me.
Geeks.
Stop. Okay.
He's describing the gaming press.
Yes.
Unwilling to change their unethical ways. I mean, I'm speaking as then, but I'm sure that many of the same things apply now anyway.
I mean, I would say that there's that. So there is a level of projection here, but I would say that the bigger issue that I have is that she's actually in some ways admitting to the fact that the end goal of these people is to change gaming. Change the community, change how people act, change what they're allowed to think, change how they're allowed to behave. This is in many ways an endorsement of that procedure, and it is an admission. And that is, I think that it is funny to where you kind of have all these fucking bourgeois people, these West Coast elites, and of which she is one. They're always on the same page. Like, they don't disagree.
Bit of the old social engineering, and when they complain, we'll call them racists.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, it really is kind of amazing with this, but we'll switch back over and continue, I guess.
In geek culture is that we really all feel very passionately about what we love, and we feel ownership over it, especially gaming. We, by definition, project ourselves into our gaming worlds as ourselves. We are,
So I'm going to stop right there, because this is something that I think I've taken multiple people to task for, of which they're almost always progressives. And you can have your own opinion on this, but I'm going to say mine quickly. I don't do that. I don't project my ego into games, which is concisely what she's speaking to. When I play a character, I'm trying to play an interesting character. There are decisions that can be made in games that would reflect what I would do, but I am simply trying to enjoy the game through the perspective of an actual character and not just my own ego. Do you actually do that? Because a friend of mine actually does that. He plays a game as he would have, makes decisions based on his own ethics and the rest.
Well, I think I do actually usually do that, to be fair, but I don't always do that. And I think, and this is obviously totally off the cuff, so don't quote me on this, but I think I have read studies that say that the majority identify as their character, not with their character. So they are playing as the character. They're not playing as themselves in the character's body, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is that, for at least on my own end, I'm willing to, understand that people do actually put themselves into characters, but I have to say, and I've said this before, and I know that other people do this, and it may be a minority, but I do what I can to create a character that I find interesting. That's how I play games, almost universally. Regardless of what game that I play, I try to craft in whatever way that I can, if I can't even do that. I try to craft an interesting character. If I were to play a game as myself, it would largely be a boring game, because I would be doing the ethical thing. I'd be doing the decent thing. I'd be doing the humanitarian thing, or what have you, the moral thing, because I'm not an immoral person. I'm not an unethical person, quite the opposite. It'd be very hard for me, even in extreme situations, to be a bad guy. I know that I could, as the meme goes, jump up the political spectrum into the far right territory if it were necessary, to maintain order or prevent chaos or what have you, or to let's say you're in a situation where you have to pull a gun and shoot a guy that's about to stab a baby. I'm sure that most of us would pull the trigger. We're not pacifists. We'd want to save the baby. And even though we have to kill a guy, it's worth it to save the baby. The issue is that most people, if they do play the game that way, that's fine for them. But I and others distinctly do the opposite, or at least try not to be the hero in order to make the game more interesting. I find games that have villainous protagonists to be much more interesting, at least from my perspective. Video games,
morally grey protagonists.
Yeah, that too. I mean, the more nuanced, the more interesting the character, the better, in my opinion. I find it very hard to pay attention to video games where you have a very straight-laced hero protagonist.
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Well, I guess. I mean, you aren't even given the option to play a villain in that game at all. I mean, you can be a little bit of an asshole from what I've seen in the game, but you never really approach the position of even renegade like you saw in the previous Mass Effect games.
Well, like even in a game like that that's supposed to give the player choice, all I've seen of Andromeda is bland, uninteresting character interactions.
Yeah. I mean, that's really all there is to it. There's nothing even comparable, and this is my one go-to, is in Mass Effect 3, when you are trying to continue the genophage, when Mordin is trying to end it, you are given the choice of allowing him to end it or shoot him in the back. And the obvious, more villainous choice, even though it's not evil, the more villainous choice is to betray Mordin and shoot him in the back. And that was the choice that I made because that was the character I was playing. It's not the decision I would have made if I were in that situation. But I'm not that interesting. And I found the more interesting angle to be to shoot Mordin in the back. I found that entertaining.
I have played games like that before. I'll run a Skyrim character that's totally different from how I play it. But I guess I play games differently from other people. I treat them, especially RPGs, usually as a sandbox to explore, rather than something onto which to throw a character. But I can understand that way of playing, and I guess I kind of want to experiment with what would happen if I was in the world, I guess. So it's completely different ways of playing, and they're both just as valid. But what she's going to use this to imply or to impose upon everyone, I suspect, is quite different from just the way you experience your character. I expect she's going to use it to impose some sort of political message.
Well, we'll see. I'll just say this, that in regards to, and I've had, there's still people to this day that make jokes about this, and I'll reiterate it once again, that if we were in the Fallout universe, I would be in the Enclave if possible, because I do believe that the ghouls and super mutants should be eradicated from this earth. That I'll leave it at that. We'll get back to the video.
I haven't played any of the Fallout games.
That's Fallout 3.
I'll choose whichever side has Liberty Prime on it, to be honest.
That I believe. Well, I don't think that. Actually, that's the Brotherhood. That's who has it. But we'll move back to the fucking video.
I basically just want to kill commies.
You know, we're not just watching a character go through a movie. We are in that world, performing the actions in a weird psychological way. So, I think you see a lot of resistance, especially in that world, to people saying this is not, I want to belong in this world, and I don't feel like I fit in, and I need things to maybe change to accommodate
So we're going to stop. She's about to say diversity, but we're going to stop again. So I'm going to say this really quickly, and you can feel free to, include yourself here, Uzalu, but no one is preventing anyone from being in gaming. No one is preventing anyone from being in gaming. If you show, and I've said this many, many times, and this is like a basic bitch kind of counter argument, that no one is going to stop you from buying a game at fucking Walmart. No one's going to stop you at GameStop. No one's going to stop you on Amazon. No one's going to stop you anywhere. No one's going to stop. How can I prevent you from buying a game on Steam? Or on Uplay? Or on Origin? Or anywhere? How can I prevent you from doing fuck all as it relates to gaming? This is an intellectually dishonest argument. And these kind of people, routinely make it. But go ahead and say if you have anything to include in that.
Yeah, I think the way that she's perceiving this is she doesn't factor the fact that we are living in a capitalist system into it. She thinks, she's thinking like a socialist. She's thinking like, okay, here's a bulk of media, here's how it should change. No, that's not how it fucking works. The bulk of media exists because a lot of different individual or units created their own media the way they want it to be created.
Yes.
The system is bottom up. So the solution must be entirely bottom up. The only alternative would be effectively censorious.
Yeah,
and that's absolutely not okay.
And as it relates to fucking diversity, we've seen that play out in multiple games, including Mass Effect Andromeda and Dragon Age Inquisition. And those games were colossal fucking failures that resulted in the downsizing of the company itself.
Yeah.
I mean, there is simply nothing to this argument. There's nothing to this.
Yeah, I mean, at the very most generous to their position, what you could say is that diversity doesn't sell well because it's not the target demographic. But I think there's more to it than that. I think when you add diversity to a game, it becomes too much of a focus. It cheapens the experience.
Yes.
What I'm happy with is character customization.
Yes.
Make it anything you want. Blue hair, pink hair, anything. Even if it doesn't really fit into the universe, let me choose it anyway. But if it's not like that, then your artistic vision must come first, and don't pay anyone to tell you that you have to have diversity in your games, and don't bow to public pressure that says you have to do anything with your art.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just, this is an older video, but you still hear this to this day, this sort of argument, and it continues on, and it still to this day has no legitimacy to it, because, this is the kind of thing where you see, for example, The Sims, which is already as diverse as you want it to be, because you can create your own world, your own characters. Everyone in it can be whatever character you want to make. You could delete every character and include it could be all white, it could be all non-white. It's up to you to create.
Yeah.
And the fact that you still have, this company reaching out, there's this developer, but now it's part of EA, reach out to GLAD to force trans inclusivity into the game to where it breaks the fucking game. There's no reason to force diversity into a game that is already infinitely diverse and naturally diverse. It naturally became diverse.
I think what it all comes down to is that this diversity shit is nothing but a power play.
Yeah.
And I think that I will give Felicia Day the benefit of the doubt. You might not agree with me here, but I don't think she realizes it right now. I don't think she's doing it for power here. I think she's doing it because the way you get drawn into this cult-like ideology is through the impression of compassion. If you can convince someone that a bunch of minorities of various different kinds want to be represented more in games, you can convince them to bolster the diversity cult, the priestly class. You can convince them to support that effort to get everyone to pay their wages to enforce ideological purity onto games. And I think that's where Felicia Day is at this point. But maybe now, because this was 2 years ago, she's moved even further, and maybe she is one of the priests, but I don't know.
I don't think she is. I would say that based on a video that I did on her later, what she is a shill. She's looking for an opportunity. She's looking for some kind of means to either better her career or make money. I don't really think that altogether she cares about this issue. Maybe tacitly she's in favor of whatever, but I think that this is just her knowing what she needs to say in order to get work. And I think that's as far as it goes with this. Because most of what she says is just platitudinous. It's just nothing. There's nothing to it. And, if she was giving an impassioned argument, I'd say otherwise, and to her giving a shit. So let's continue.
Diversity of viewpoints. I would...
Diversity of viewpoints. I don't think she actually means that. I'm pretty sure she actually means diversity of like racial perspectives. I'm pretty sure that's what she means.
Yeah. When she says viewpoint, she's probably talking about standpoint theory, although she doesn't know it. But yeah, diversity of thought it's a
So more far right perspectives. That's what we need, Felicia, right?
Yeah. We need more alt-right characters.
More trad cons, more libertarian, more constitutionalist. That's what we mean, right? Viewpoints. Right?
I tell you what we need actually. If anyone out there plays The Sims, make a video where you play a purely alt-right family, and make one where you play a purely SJW family.
You know what's funny is that they actually just announced that they're coming out with a parenting pack, because they're like increasingly adding more content for like little kids, like toddlers and all that shit, because it was a major criticism of lacking content. And one of the things that they included was strict parenting. That you actually you can be an overbearing parent. And I saw that and I laughed. And I'm like, if I looked in the forums, I'm pretty sure there's going to be pushback for this. I'm pretty sure there's going to be that. But
I don't mind how diverse they make it. Just give people options rather than enforcing bullshit against the nature of the art. And if Sims is just giving people the option to do that stuff, then no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, but the problem is that these people don't want there to be the option.
Well, they want the option to be secondary to the diversity.
That's true, but from what I've seen, they actively don't like the fact, like, if you are allowed to play, let's say, like a conservative or something other than a progressive character, they don't like that. They want you to play the progressive character. They don't like the option. I've seen multiple examples of that, where they've actively denounced the game for allowing you to be something other than a progressive character, even with that option being in the game. I'd have to look it up, but I remember seeing it at least a while back. Let's go back.
Not say that anything that's happened has been good for the image of gaming, to be honest with you, but I think you can always look at everything as a positive, and the fact that you have a very small minority of people who happen to be very loud and think they have access to people because the way the social media is, you have
access. That's the key word in my mind anyways, is access. They think they have access.
Oh no, but it's Felicia that has access.
Yes, exactly.
Don't you know? I want to ask Felicia, if they were so loud, why did you never listen to them?
Oh, right. No, she went on to declare herself a victim of them. She put it in a book, and she did it. It was funny. She put it in her book that she shilled later. That's what I mean. Like, I think honestly, it was 90% about her career.
All right.
All right, going back.
10 times as many people pushing back against that, and
That's
really
that
probably foments a lot more change because people are feeling more supported by the majority, and can be encouraged to be a gamer without being shamed about it. So
stop.
Was it your perception that the majority were on the side of social justice?
No, definitely not. Definitely fucking not.
No,
I mean, the majority of gamers, in my opinion, as it related to Gamergate specifically, didn't give a shit. Yeah. That's where the majority was. They weren't on either fucking side. I would say that if they were sat down and given a choice, they would defer to Gamergate. But the fact is that... Let me replay what you just said, because I was going to say something, but I'm blanking on it. So let me quickly replay that.
Encouraged to be a gamer without, being shamed about it.
Okay, that was the comment. What the fuck are you talking about? We are gamers. What the fuck are you talking about?
Like the important thing about it is that social justice warriors were radical progressives before they started this gaming bullshit, before they started to invade gaming. But the gamers that opposed them were all kinds of different things. For Gamergate, it was not initially ideological. It was the defense of the culture they loved. For the social justice warriors, it was purely ideological. Yeah. For the power of their collective.
So, shaming gamers is not the point. We are gamers. So that's just, it's not even like a straw man. It's just incoherent babble. And that's what I said as much when I did the original commentary on this. I've called it like I forget what the name of the video was, but it was like Felicia Day spouts gibberish about Gamergate. I think that was the name of the video. And I still stand by that point. Like, this actively doesn't make any sense. We are the gamers, and no one's saying to anyone, if you are of darker skin, if you're a female, if you're disabled, if you're queer, if you're whatever, no one's telling you to not be a gamer. No one has ever said that. The fact is, if there is any discrimination, it's who gets to be on my friends list, and that isn't up to anybody, including Felicia Day. And the other part is, if you come in and you start egotistically and narcissistically telling us about yourself, you're going to get shit for it. Because it's not about being a gamer, it's about you in that case. And no one fucking cares about you. No one wants to hear about your fucking personality. No one wants to hear about your proclivities. No one cares. You know, what kind of gender queer bullshit you're involved in. No one cares. It's not about the game. But like I said, this is honestly like a basic bitch explanation. How many times have people fucking said this exact same thing? But it is, and the reason why this video is still relevant now, people still insist on this shit. I actually have a script that I'm working on where the person involved makes the exact same fucking arguments as this. Alright, getting back.
So I think it's the kind of struggle that you see when you're trying to change people's viewpoints. And hopefully there's enough people to band together to say, yes, we can be inclusive rather than exclusive. Because if you look at the number...
Stop again, okay? How is anyone going to stop you from buying a game? That's what I want to know. It's a basic question, but this begs the question. It literally logically begs the question. How does one prevent inclusivity in gaming? How does that happen? And here's the thing, as I say, but that's not what we're talking about. That is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is influence over the creation of games. That's what we're talking about.
And again, I don't think it's her that's really the driving force of that power play, but whoever has convinced her of this bullshit is, even if they don't necessarily know it, ultimately part of a collective that's doing this,
Yeah.
or it's themselves doing it. But yeah, I mean, a quick comment though, like how long and how many men played as Lara Croft without complaining?
I mean, it's hardly the only example, but I mean, it is an example where it's like the new game was denounced by its own company. They made a sequel despite this. I have yet to play the sequel, but I own it. I gotta play it at some point. It's on my backlog. But the CEO, I believe, of Square Enix said that the game, the first Tomb Raider, was a commercial flop, and it sold millions of copies. It sold millions more than fucking Mass Effect Andromeda, that's for sure. And it was beloved. I didn't see anyone out there begrudgingly saying that this new reboot was terrible. Nobody. So, have you played it?
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah, no, when you said first Tomb Raider, I got confused. I thought you meant like the very first
the
Tomb Raider.
reboot. The reboot
Yes.
from like...
I heard them say that. It sold, was it like 6 million copies? And they said that was a commercial failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that says much about this particular topic, but maybe about the gaming industry in general. But yeah, again, like no one, I don't buy that people really care about being represented in a game. I think that there's a very small minority who have very little feeling of control in their lives and want to either themselves or want other people to do it for them, control the media that they consume so that they can feel like they do have control over it.
I actually have heard a few people make that point, that they do care about inclusion, like they do actually care about representation. Amazingly enough, some black guy was actually one of those people. I saw a video by him about superheroes where he actually went into detail to say that he was disappointed as a child that there wasn't more black superheroes. But I mean, maybe this is just maybe this is white privilege. When I was young, I had no conception at all about race of the superheroes on television. You know, I didn't concern myself while watching, you know, Die Hard that Bruce Willis was white. That never was my main concern.
I don't know the guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if his concern that there weren't more black superheroes was based at least partly on what other people had told him about race.
Maybe. I don't know.
Like, when I was young, I had a friend who was not white, and I had no idea. I actually only realized it like 5 or 6 years ago when I thought back on it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I don't think people really... I don't know. I think people only learn to care about identity if someone tells them to.
I had this is going back a ways, but I had a friend of mine when I was in private school, so we're talking like elementary school, way back when, who was half black, half white, and was adopted. And it was amazing because everyone that I knew was friendly to this guy, and you know, I thought he's a good guy. I haven't really kept up on where he is now, but I just remember that all the parents and everything, and I even had my own parents say something to me like, make sure you don't say anything mean, you don't ask him about his race, you don't say this or that. And I kind of I just didn't get it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what does it matter? You know, I don't understand why I'd be talking about this kid's race. I can remember that as a kid, and it lasted for quite a while. And then so when people say that they don't see color, you know, I was never raised to be a racist. I was never raised to give a shit about race outside of, you know, politeness in conversation or whatever as a kid. But it seems to me that we're reaching a point where this is a conversation you're going to have with children because everything's so fucked. You know? Yep.
The best way to end racism is to stop caring about race.
Yeah.
If there is racial discrimination that is incidental, then we have laws for that.
Right, and if you do, you know, if your child or you or anyone else does actually encounter a moment of like racial discrimination or racism or whatever, I mean, you don't have to like have a college dictionary's worth of fucking epithets and, you know, dogmatism in mind before they can even approach that situation. I mean, the fact that people are pushing for like race realism in essence to be taught in schools and shit is ridiculous. I have a very close friend who he has a master's degree now. He's a teacher. And one of the last courses that he took, and they were basically introducing all this shit because they had Black Lives Matter on their campus, and they were protesting. They basically created a white privilege course, and it was mandatory. He had to go to it, and he was telling me about it, and he showed me documents from it, and it was fucking loopy. It was fucking nuts. And
it's just race realism from a different perspective.
It is. And the thing is that he basically said to me, in seriousness, in all sincerity, that he wanted to push back, even though he's like blue-pilled, okay? He's not aware of all this shit. But he basically said, I took this course, and I think that the professors are racist, and I think this material's racist. And I want to write an essay, as part of the course to say that I disagree with this. He says, but I'm so afraid that they're going to fail me and I won't get my degree. And that's what all this is about.
This is fucking awful, though.
It's so fucking authoritarian, and it's trying to force people to be something that they're not. They're not a racist, and yet you're trying to make them a race realist.
Did the religious right ever get that far?
I mean, it is an equitable comparison to say like this. This would basically be if you had secular universities insisting to students that they must believe God in order to graduate. It's that fucking bad.
Yeah, it is. Except it's not just God. It's a whole raft of beliefs that aren't presented as separate.
Right, it's political.
From other beliefs. They integrate themselves into your beliefs. They pretend to be normal.
Yeah.
And they're things that you'd have to unpick gradually. You can't just say, okay, this is religious, this is not. They're a raft of beliefs you have to unpick precisely and surgically. And that's so much more difficult to get rid of than a religion.
Yeah, it really is a form of indoctrination, and it is a political ideology, obviously, and it is in part just a religion as well, as people have said. I mean, the feminism aspect is definitely, but it's like this intersectional feminism that relates to a lot of this, to this race realism from what I've seen. But it's just amazing to me that that's the route we're currently still going. And people say like, oh, this whole Lacey Green thing's a big deal and that we're now winning the war. It's like, they're still introducing this shit in college, and they just passed that fucking lunatic bill in Canada. They passed it.
The war of ideas has been won for a while. Quite a while now. Lacey is just late to the party in realizing that. The political and sort of practical war has been going on for a while now, and it's going to take a lot longer to get through to the end. There's a lot of problems to solve. I don't know if we'll necessarily win that one, and not completely. There might be something else that comes up before we get a chance to.
Yeah, things can always change and divert attention away from that to something else, although I hope they don't, because I think that this fucking cancer needs to be eradicated from all aspects. And that's why when people say, when Bernie Sanders and others and people ask me, do I support universal college? I don't, because of this. I'm not handing these fucking cocksuckers a blank check, because that's what you're asking of me. I
don't want to reward them. I want to force them to earn it.
The ideal of everyone having an education and all that, I can understand and respect that, and I believe in that as well, because if you're not just talking about some bourgeois cunt having access to fucking college. You're talking about the working class having a free ticket into college, and you're talking about some kid on the streets, white or black, Latino, Asian, going into college, busting, his ass, getting a good degree, and walking into a six-figure job with no debt on his shoulders. That's great. But the issue is that you're also handing a blank check to the fucking lunatic asylum on these campuses.
Yeah, they have to be accountable. They have to earn the money that they get. And I think we've noticed on U.S. universities recently, a lot of them have been losing funds, losing applications. The one where Melissa Click did the...
Mizzou, dude. Have you seen what's been happening at Mizzou? They're collapsing as a university. They might fucking literally collapse.
And that, honestly, if it does, that's probably for the best, because that's
because they're unwilling to reform.
It's a pseudo-capitalistic system.
Yeah. I agree.
Probably not even pseudo, but it's a meritorious system. That's what you need. If it collapses, it'll be a warning to every other university that's indoctrinating students with activism.
And it has served as a great warning sign to other universities, which have then come out and said that we support free speech on campus. Yeah. We are not in favor of preaching this lunatic ideology. We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And we're against safe spaces and all that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good first step, but what needs to happen is for these academics to be forced out of these universities. You know, if you're going to have, I would say, allow the social justice courses at private universities. Allow them there. But when it comes to taxpayer-funded universities, they shouldn't be there because they're not teaching you any useful skills. They're not teaching you anything that you can get a job other than indoctrinating others and pushing fucking Marxist horse shit. You know,
probably better not to impose government restrictions upon privately funded universities, especially in the US, where it's a much more libertarian culture than it is here. But publicly funded, even if it's just any amount, they have to be held accountable to the public standards.
I mean, there are plenty, and I'm aware of theology courses in universities. They're not anywhere near as bad as this.
You can teach what people believe without teaching people what to believe.
Yeah. Again, just indoctrinating them into the position. It's just, this is such a common sense thing that it's amazing to me that there is any pushback to this. But unfortunately, I don't think that most people understand the gravity of the situation.
Yeah,
and
I mean, the thing is, if you asked Felicia here, are you in favor of indoctrination? She would say no. The thing is that she wouldn't recognize what's going on. She and many others wouldn't recognize what's going on with the indoctrination of this radical progressivism as indoctrination because it presents itself as so normal. The problem for her isn't the principle. It's for her modulated by exactly what is being taught.
Yeah,
I'm assuming her position, of course, but I think it's true of many people who would be similar to her.
I think these people fucking they ultimately fear that if given the choice, people are going to be conservative. I think that's what they fear. I think if they fear anything, they think that if in the market of ideas, conservatives are going to win. So the only choice we have is to indoctrinate people or to force them into progressivism.
That's true. Yes, because the progressives have had the hegemony for too long and they've become complacent and they've started to force people to, or try to force people to go their way because they can't entice them to go their way.
Yeah.
So right now, conservatism in the US is the more appealing option, definitely. But that might change in another 10 years.
Yeah, I've said this to Sargon, and I believe I've said this to you and others, that if at any point this progressive ideology, if all of this collapses, okay, and I mean a decent amount of this, it all intersects to one degree or another, but this progressivism, for lack of a better way to put it, if it collapses overnight and it's gone and these people are over and done with it and they are in a moment of self-reflection and all that, I do think that those on the right, in whatever form, are going to rise up and basically become the new authoritarian force, or the new force that's trying to force themselves onto others. I see it already. I honestly think that, and this isn't just to insult any of you that are listening to this, because I know I have conservative followers, but I do honestly see in some ways with the right, especially, you know, the kind of the kind of hegemonic attitude that people like Paul Joseph Watson have. They just have this position that they are inevitable. They are an inevitability. That everyone will join them. And I think that kind of position, that kind of perspective, will lead you down the road of doing terrible things, because you think that these people are a hindrance to the inevitability of your rise.
Quite possibly. I think what we're seeing now is the US, a pretty free society, plus the very unusual and novel effects of the internet and of modern technology on people's psychology, going through what might be an inexorable spiral of greater extremism on both sides.
Yeah.
And I don't know which side it's going to end it. I don't think that obviously, I think the pendulum is going to swing to the right fully. I mean, obviously, you've got the president, but you haven't got a great deal of the culture yet, and the institutions. But that'll come gradually. That's going to happen. It's going to swing to the right. How far exactly it does, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the alt-right, but I think, obviously, I mean, yes, the right is going to gain power. It's going to gain cultural and social power. And then it's going to get complacent, start to oppress people, or not oppress necessarily, but start to
become more authoritarian.
Do what the progressives are doing now, where they have to try to impel people to become part of their ideology rather than just, enticing them. and then it's going to go back to the left again when the left reforms. That'll keep happening. All we can hope is that it doesn't stay as extreme as it is now. All we can hope is it becomes a bit more moderate from here on out. But I don't know if it will, because the internet amplifies all this.
Yeah, I mean, my hope, if I were to hope anything, that the ideal situation here would be that that if the right were to come into power in a major effect and the left really does collapse, that the right, and I've said this before, the right understands that in order for this country, in order for the West even, to function as it needs to, you need a functional left. And my hope is that they don't take that opportunity to go fucking crazy and go authoritarian. My hope is that they don't do it, but I think they will, because it'll be too much of a gift. It'll be too much of a desire that we're now in power and these people are completely defeated. Let's go fucking balls to the wall.
Yep, you need. I mean, this is. It's not. I'm not just angry with the current left because they're fucking insane. I'm angry with them because they're going to give all this power to the right. You need competent forces on both sides to keep the pendulum swinging fairly. Otherwise, it just swings inevitably and completely in one direction. Yeah. Someone in the chat said, Will Hanna said, need some centrism in this bitch. And while I agree with you, while I am predominantly a centrist, I consider myself a centrist before a leftist, you can't just have centrism. If the pendulum stops swinging and just hovers in the middle, you won't innovate.
It's not good either. It's not good either. Then I honestly think you're going to have a lot of political apathy.
Yes. But to be fair, we could use some more centrism than we currently have in the US.
I would say so.
Less extremism.
I would say that honestly, the thing that needs to be introduced more than anything, and this isn't even a criticism on the right, because on the right they already have this discussion. They already have this fucking debate between collectivism and individualism. I see right-wingers constantly debating this issue, but on the left there's no argument. There is no individualist angle to the left wing. It's just pure collectivism, and that's the issue. I honestly think that what needs to happen on the left is what is currently happening on the right, is a deep disagreement and discussion as it relates to collectivism versus individualism.
Yeah, and that may take years. Yeah,
decades, man. It's not popular. It really isn't. I can only begin to. I mean, the people that I know from college, the people that I know in my personal life, outside of red pilling a handful of people, including my parents, no one I really know understands that difference. No one really understands what collectivism is. No one really understands what individualism is. They understand, at least to the perspective of, live and let live, or I'm an individual, you're an individual. They understand, at least to some degree, that we do live in an individualistic nation. And I think that people are taught to be naturally individualistic, at least in America, because we are. And it's the same could be said for Korea in terms of collectivism and the rest, or China. It's natural and it's part of that culture because it seems to have always been that way. Japan's a little bit of a freak show in that regard. According to the statistics that I've seen, it's like one of the most individualistic nations, and that may be us. Maybe that's our influence there. I don't know. Maybe it isn't.
Nuke them into individualism.
Yeah, exactly. Or as Anita says, nuke them into conservatism. Maybe that's what she meant. But in any case,
individualism is conservatism.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, bro. I wouldn't doubt it. I've had people accuse me of that. I've had people say that individualism is conservative by definition. Yeah, and I've had to fucking combat them on that. I've had to say, no, you don't understand that. Then you're saying that America is a conservative nation. You're then conceding that. Because we are unequivocally, even going back to the founders, then on, we are an individualistic nation. We fought a fucking revolutionary war for individual rights.
It was the great libertarian experiment.
Yeah. I mean, you can say that France is, by definition, collectivist based on the revolution. You can't fucking say that about the United States. We are, by definition, an individualistic nation. If you want to counter that, you're speaking against the fucking founders. You're speaking against the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They're all individual rights. What do you want to say? So, anyways, let's get back and finish off this fucking video.
Yep.
It's vastly out. It's the negative is vastly outbalanced by the positive, I believe.
Okay, so there wasn't really much else to that.
Just her perspective of what negative and positive are.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, she picked a side there, clearly.
Yeah, definitely. She picked a side in terms of Gamergate. She never got off of it. So did Colin Moriarty, or however it's pronounced. He actually did. He actually someone sent me a link to say that when he was on Dave Rubin's show, I'm not sure how much you are following my spat with him, but he went on Dave Rubin's show and condemned Gamergate.
I think you may have mentioned some things about him, including that.
Yeah.
It's not good. I would love someone to show me some evidence that some prominent figure in Gamergate ever engaged in anything unethical or even mean. Because the most I'm aware of is people who like use the hashtag because they thought it was a harassment campaign, who are not associated with Gamergate.
Yeah, and were flagged and shit. Yeah. The only exception that I'm aware of is this one guy I don't remember the name of that showed up at some event or something like that, some gathering, and he did something that people didn't like, and he got like reamed about it. And the only other guy, and I don't remember that guy's name, the only other guy was Ralph from the Ralph Retort. Because he supports doxing, and I've heard him from his own mouth that he supports doxing.
Yeah, no, he does. I've heard that too.
But I can say that even though I've had no interaction with him, that I obviously don't agree with that, and I would say that even during Gamergate, if I remember right, he did take a lot of shit for that position.
I'm sure, yeah.
And so you have the one exception to the rule, whereas on the other side you have people that define unethical behavior.
Yeah. No, all I saw. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I wasn't really politically active during the Gamergate thing, and I wish I was, because it seems like a genuinely positive movement, wholly positive movement. It was just cultural libertarianism, basically.
Yeah. Which
I think we can all agree on as a movement, and an attempt to remove sort of an oligarchical corruption in the gaming press, and you can say that it was about removing feminism or whatever, but that's covered in the cultural libertarian thing. It doesn't matter if it's feminism or Islam that's trying to impose itself. The idea is to let the artists do what they want without being pressured by arbitrary ideologies.
Yeah, it's still a fucking issue. I mean, I see every single day there's people tweeting it out. I see it on Kotaku in action. I see it all over the place that there are still issues with censorship. There's still issues with so-called localization. There's still issues of people coming right out and saying. You have this thing with Mass Effect Andromeda where there was an artist that came out, and this was on some guy's channel, and I don't know if it was ever distinctly verified, but there was someone that had inside access to BioWare that said outright that they were being pressured to make the female character specifically uglier, and that actually reflects in the art.
I bet that's true as well.
Yeah, I bet it is too, because that's one of the things that Anita Sarkeesian constantly talked about, reiterated.
You can't make them attractive because that would be
sexualization to the male gaze.
Who except an ideologue would prefer a women to be
and I mean, the fact is that, okay, let's say that I'm wrong about that in terms of the protagonist. Let's say that I'm wrong. That's not true. Why did they change the Asari? Why did they change an entire race?
Yeah, that's really bad. That's not even in law.
Why? Why do that? It begs the question, why create entire new character models? Why create? Why do that? It takes more work. It takes more time. Why do it? Because they reused a bunch of different textures. They did that with all the other races for the most part, outside the ones they created that were brand new. Why do it? There's no reason other than the fact that you did it for ideological reasons. There's no other definition. Yeah. In my mind, if you have one, give it. But they clam up on it. They don't want to talk about that. They just deny it. And that's how you have to rely on inside sources saying, no, this is fucking true.
Do you think the majority of artists involved in these industries, and I don't just mean visual artists, but artists of all kinds, not the management, not the PR people, but the actual artists, including the coders, do you think they enjoy having their artwork curbed like this by arbitrary ideologies?
It's amazing because I can tell you that I've interacted with fucking legit artists, bona fide artists that have basically condemned me and said that I'm actually wrong, that artwork should be censored when they themselves rely on free speech and rely on a free market. They rely on that for an income. And I've done videos. People can look at my channel. They're old, but I've dealt with artists that are fine with censorship in this industry. It's amazing to me, but I can tell you that unfortunately, this is one of the moments where it's obviously, I would say, a fucking fringe that would be accepting of that, but they do exist, and they're a plague. You know, they're literally their own existence is contradictory.
I think what we need to see, what I was getting onto with that, is everything in the next few decades is going to be decentralizing.
Yeah.
And I think gaming will be one of those things. And I think the reason maybe that some of this is happening is because the internet gives us the decentralization, but it also gives us the ability to form echo chambers, which means much greater ability to create ideologies that are cohesive and well thought out, and yet geographically disparate. So the combination of these two things means that right now, ideologies have a great amount of control over businesses because they're slower to change than, social factors like the ideologies growing. And they have that control now, but maybe in 10 years there'll be enough decentralization that they can't ever have that control again. The more power you give to the individual creators to create these games and to small groups, the more there'll be, the less influence these the priestly class is going to have over them, and the more individual agency these groups of artists will have.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
go ahead.
They'll just fall out of fashion necessarily, I think. I hope.
Yeah, it's a good hope to have. I can't really say that I'm as positive in that regard. I can see it happening, but I would say that unfortunately, it's eventually going to have. My position on this is that I think eventually, at some point, the shareholders are going to have to step up. Because, I mean, BioWare was a company that was on the same path that CD Projekt Red is now on. I mean, people don't remember, but in 2012, when Mass Effect 2 came out, it was a fucking bestseller. It was the best-selling game that they had made. They were making insane money. Oh, hold on a second, get a phone.
I'm not sure how long I need to entertain the chat for.
Fucking wrong number. Jesus Christ, my ear. Anyways, so as I was saying, Mass Effect 2 was a big bestseller for BioWare. And the fact that they took that, and that was the video that I was going to make that I promised to do, but I wound up just saying forget it because it's too frustrating for me to cover. But they took everything that they had, balled it up, and threw it in the garbage can because Mass Effect 3 was nothing but a game that sold well, but was a complete and utter PR fucking disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, you had months upon months of people campaigning to have your game changed, campaigning against your company, campaigning to, congregate the fan base into one cohesive group to push back. It wasn't just the nature of the end, but it was also the microtransactions. It was the bullshit in the third game that people, the day one DLC, all of it. People were just beyond frustrated with what was going on, and they were unsatisfied with the game that they had purchased. And like I said, I always say it was proto Gamergate. And
I think we should draw a distinction between campaigning to change things based on an ideology and campaigning to change things based on the merit of the product. Right.
I mean, people were there were obviously people there for different reasons. Most of the people involved in that, and I was part of an entire group that 100% was trying to change things at BioWare, trying to change things at EA. It absolutely was, and I probably could go look it up and see to the plank of what they were asking for. But it was a change for the future of the products, not just the game itself that had come out with Mass Effect 3, but also the fact that, don't do pre-order bullshit, don't put DA1 DLC with this game, don't restrict content. And it was important to the story, the content that they had restricted. It was important, and they had a price tag on it. It was ridiculous. It was all the crazy black market shit that was going on with the lithographs. It was nuts what was going on back then. And it was a PR disaster for the company that was sustained for months, but eventually fucking dwindled out and died. But they never made good on it. They never actually apologized. They used the press as their fucking attack dogs to attack gamers, call them entitled. That was the whole fucking thing with Colin. It was a nightmare for BioWare. Then they released Dragon Age 2, which itself was a PR disaster, even though I can defend it. Then they had fucking Dragon Age Inquisition, or then they had SWTOR, which was mixed. Then they had Dragon Age Inquisition, which it wasn't a PR disaster, but it sold well the first month and it dropped off the face of the fucking earth.
Yeah, I think the issue with that that I heard from many people was that there were just massive, boring sections of it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Just it was a 200 something hour game that had about fucking 12 hours of content. The first game was like that as well, but it was even more boring than the first game because it wasn't interesting. It didn't have interesting characters. There was nothing about it that retained your attention. It was a terrible game, and it's amazing because back then people were telling me so much how I was wrong, In the same way with Mass Effect Andromeda, I had people even like V telling me I was completely wrong about that game, and then later going on to ream the game and call it a piece of shit. And that's what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda. They released another dud that was a PR. It was an even bigger PR nightmare than their last game, than Mass Effect 3. It was an even bigger PR nightmare because you had people like, you had some random people with 100,000 views. That's one thing. You got people like PewDiePie just dumping on your game right before release.
Yeah.
It did impact their sales, period. And the fact is...
wrong,
no, he wasn't. Obviously not. And the fact is that, they're not going to change the game. There's not going to be any DLC. They've given up on that. They flat out said there's not going to be any. And they downsized their company as a result of this. I mean, the point that I'm leading up to is it was diverse and people still complained. You forced diversity, people still complained, and now your company's fucking being downsized.
Yeah, even if we can say, to add to that, even if we can say that diversity does help a game sell, it doesn't help if you put it in at the expense of other things. And it seems like it shouldn't be, but it seems like they can't do both.
Yeah.
They can't do a proper good game with good gameplay, good characters, good everything, just as they would otherwise, and put in the diversity. Sure, whatever, it's arbitrary, but as long as it's optional, they don't seem to be able to do both at the same time. Except the games that have always done, customizable characters.
I would say that is almost entirely true. The only exceptions would be like there are games that have included, I would say, forced diversity that are a bit more subtle about it. Even in Prey, one of the things that I was fucking around with people on Twitter about was that there are like every couple in Prey is a fucking lesbian couple. Every fucking one. It's ridiculous. They're all women, they're all Asian or whatever, and they're all fucking gay. And it is forced. It absolutely is forced. But the fact is that, am I going to really begrudge a game where there's a mission where you as the female Morgan have to go save your girlfriend, get her medicine? Am I really going to begrudge the game when they don't make it about the diversity? It's just a mission. And you know that enough that this is your ex-girlfriend. You know enough by listening to logs, by listening to the conversation. It is subtle enough. It isn't subtle when literally every fucking log you're picking up is about a lesbian couple. That doesn't get through my radar. That peaks on my radar. Yeah. But you can get away with it. You can force diversity in the game and have it not consume the game itself.
Yeah. Okay. It just seems so few of them have actually been able to do it.
Yeah, and Prey's not a perfect game. I'm trying to remember what I gave it. It was like a 7.5, or maybe I even went up to an 8. I can't even remember what I gave it. It's definitely not a perfect game. And maybe it did detract from it when they're focusing so much on the diversity. Maybe that happened. But the fact is that you actually have to make a decent game, and diversity's not going to fucking save you.
Yeah. We need more straight representation in video games, to be quite honest.
I mean, when every fucking couple in a game is an Asian lesbian couple.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you throw in some straight couples. That's all I'm saying.
This is what we need. We need anti-feminist frequency. We need to cherry pick examples where they've used only lesbian couples and say this is why gaming must change to include more.
That,
couples.
or in the case of Life is Strange, you need to allow the player to actually choose the lesbian that you want to date. You can't just have Zoe. Is it Zoe?
I can't remember.
I think it's Zoe. You can't just have the one
Chloe.
You can't just have the one lesbian. I say Victoria. She should have been an option in Life is Strange, and I still stand by that. And
I've seen some of it played, so I vaguely know these characters. Victoria's like the really poncy, snooty one, right?
Yes, she's tsundere, and I'm telling you, it could have worked well. It could have added to the game. I would have given it added points for that if it were allowed, but they didn't. They put you on a track where it's either I think there's some sort of like flirtation with the one guy. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a fucking cuck. And it's either him,
Yeah,
or it's nobody, or it's fucking Chloe. Those are your choices. And fuck the devs, fuck their next game. If they don't give you fucking options when it comes to lesbianism, fuck that game. 0 out of 10. All right.
more Centauri representation.
Yeah, more lesbian representation, god damn it. More choices. If you're gonna have just lesbian couples, I want a fucking option, all right?
Look, all Louis wants in life is good gameplay, a lot of gore and good graphics, and some lesbian Asians to play around with.
If that were the case, Prey would be a 10 out of 10. But in any case, do you have? Let's wrap this up. So, final thoughts.
Yeah. I actually do need to go, so let's wrap it up
okay.
now. But yes, this is 2 years old, but it's still in many ways very relevant to what's happening today. The same principles are in play.
All right, I absolutely agree, and that's why I'm glad that I did this video. Let's see if it gets copyright claimed. I think it will. Thanks for the chat. I didn't pay attention to you. We're out of time, but thanks to Uzalu. I'll be sure to link his video, or his channel, rather, when I have the time to do so. Be sure to check him out and all that shit. No jokes. Apparently no death threats based on my date. More, not necessarily more, but Victoria needed to be an option. Life is Strange. Fuck the developers. Fuck Life is Strange. And that's how we'll end this. Thank you.